everybody. Thanks for joining me for another one-man review. Today I'll be taking a look at a really cool new book from Dark Horse, Joe Death and the Graven Image by Benjamin Skipper, or Schipper. This is a really cool book. I grabbed it because it looked like what it is in terms of the art, which is someone that's highly influenced by Mike Mignola, but has evolved that style kind of in a different direction. Someone who's taking that work and combining it with like more cartoon style imagery, and I'm having a real hard time looking at it, placing all of the influences other than Mignola. I see some similarities to like what Banu Pratap is doing, or someone like Max Huffman, who's really looking back at like old cartoons and old cartooning, and kind of like a early modernist type of design sensibility, and then bringing that like advertising design and advertising illustration cartooning. I'm thinking from like the 40s and 50s or something like that, but then in this case like mixing it with Mike Mignola, and you can see the really obvious like Mike Mignola type of spotting of blacks and just sensibilities of design in general, the color throughout. But it also feels very different. It's not your typical like person that's just a Mignola clone. There's like the his own Benjamin Skipper's got his own sensibility throughout the book that's really compelling. And just some of the design stuff here reminds me of Sergio Topi, some of the shapes that I've seen. So there's a lot of influences coming together in this book that make for a really interesting visual thing. And so I got it thinking, oh well, it's gonna be kind of like a Mignola book where the stories are just kind of, like they pass by really quick and they're not terribly consequential, but the art looks so cool. This book actually surprised me because a lot of the writing in it, I think, is significantly consequential and talking about really important things, and is getting at something that I'm seeing developing in the zeitgeist as well, which is kind of a return to like the idea of the cowboy, the competent outsider. I know we've talked about that with Masamune Shiro stuff when we're talking about Appleseed. Sean and Brandon are making this argument for the competent outsider choosing to work inside of the system. And I've been seeing a lot of that recently, including in the latest season of The Mandalorian. I feel like there's that kind of sensibility. So it seems to be something that's in the zeitgeist, and I feel like Skipper's picking up on that. The story is pretty much about like this child that gets kidnapped, and this guy, Joe Death, who I think used to be like a dog or a werewolf and had his nose chopped off. That's why he's got this kind of skeleton face. Goes to save the kid. And then it's kind of, even in that bigger story, there's kind of these little episodic moments. And within each episode, he's kind of encountering different power structures or different political philosophies, and kind of not being satisfied with any of them. So I'm going to read a conversation here that I just think is compelling. He's trying to buy something basically, and this character here says, "These babbles are old currency. What do you require for passage? We've come a long way from coin, yes, very far indeed, friend. All we require is a signature." What is that? What are they handing him? "Creeds of conduct, little sir. Have a look for yourself. Bear no arms, speak no evil. Who defines that? Really, definitions are so tiresome. Trust us to make it easier than that. We've compiled a list of unacceptable words on page 59 for your convenience. Use none of these while in the shadow of Rhone, and your stay will be oh so special." And then some of the words that you can't use: witch, coven, sorcery, demon worship, devil, child sacrifice. Evil words indeed, good words for evil deeds, I say. And they kind of continue having the conversation like that. And I thought that it was really interesting that one of the things they're encountering here is that you don't even need to have money in this society, that as long as you assent to the rules, you'll be taken care of. And that kind of like group think, the currency of group think is kind of put on blast there. So I thought that was an interesting little thing. And that was probably the first moment that I perked my head to like, oh, this is someone saying something more consequential about political structures and, just the way reality is now. Here's another one. "How many tables have you despised because you were not offered their head? the least of seats at a good table is better than the head of an evil one. So again, like this morality of that the ultimate thing is power. Like I'm gonna not take the invite unless I can be at the head of the table. I thought is this again the competent outsider looking at this person and finding their character flaw in there. Here's another one, and again, while I'm flipping through, it's like I don't want to be passing over the awesome art. I think this is this amazing composition here. I like the distortions of the figure. After I read this book, I really wanted to go draw because it's some of the weird distortions and stylizations of stuff are the things that are inspiring me right now. The focus on shapes, like flattening things out and letting things stack up in a flatter way. There's a lot of good stuff going on in there. So in this scene also you can see like what Joe Death looked like before he got cursed. Something went wrong with him here. You see his kind of dog face and he had more muscle on him. But you also get another nice little quotable. Easy roads are full of thieves because soft people choose them. So someone who's willing to walk the hard road because the results are better. And that actually, that's the wiser thing to do. And so there's just a lot of these little sentences like that. And then you just get these amazing compositions like this with this, the way this werewolf has rendered and some of the kind of stylistic things, these weird little loop-de-loops, like taking that magnolia, like this type of magnolia, I don't even want to call it hatching, but gradient, and playing with the shapes that go in there a little bit more, the stacking of the shapes in the werewolf. I just think it's really, really interesting to look at. Here's another part where they're kind of talking about society, and they're cycling through different societies. Like that earlier one seems to be kind of like the socialist thing, right? We don't have money here as long as you assent to the rules, blah, blah, blah. And then now they've got somewhere where it's like a more capitalist system, and he's also not finding any kind of solace in operating within that system. I think this book kind of presents the major, what we consider almost binaries of politics now that aren't really binaries. It's just they're kind of the dominant systems that are in argument in the last 100 years or so. And this character is not finding comfort in any of them. He's looking for something different. But I love this here too. Now, I know there must be at least a few skeptics out here, some hive leaders unsure of this new world. I don't blame you. And I'm also not anxious for you to cut into our profit margins. Stay outside for all I care. And they're being tempted into this kind of corporate system here. And then he says, no, fools, the trap, the trick, the chain, the ladder. And so that like always striving the ladder. I like that, this progressive sense of like there's always more to be had. There's always more to be gained. And they see that as the trap and the chain that it is. And then here we get into this sequence where now people are talking about kind of preferring a simulation to reality. So these characters here have these paintings of women, and they're saying, haven't we a job to do, and won't there be women in this place, real women? After riding for days, what for? Real women, who needs them? You find me real women like these, and I'll fight you for them, but I'll bet you anything you can't. So this idea that like people are in this corporate system or in the world that we're in now becoming more and more comfortable with simulated things instead of the real thing. Not that we live in like a computer simulation, but we're further and further removed from real things as more things are done through us with convenience. And then here's another one that I really liked. And perhaps bridges will be burned also. I expect so. No one can be friends with everyone, and all sides aren't equal. Choose now how you should live. Maybe I better start paying attention then. Something at the end of this isn't squaring up in my noggin. And so this character's like come through all of these different systems and is realizing, I can't make everyone happy, but I'm good at what I do, and I'm just going to have to operate within whatever system I want and try not to burn bridges, but if some bridges get burnt, no big deal. And with that kind of writing combined, writing of real consequence, writing that really has something to say about now, combined with this like just fantastic artwork, I found this book way more compelling than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was just going to be kind of cool to look at, but I haven't, like the Magnolia stuff is always fun to read, but I don't feel like it's kind of timeless. It's not really speaking to anything. I don't even want to say anything contemporary, but I just don't really feel like I take much away from the Mignola stuff other than being entertained. And I'm seeing more and more of these books that are kind of like in between indie books and mainstream books. You know, Mignola being like the indie mainstream book. This is pushing that one further to where you are looking at someone like Max Huffman or somebody that's really operating outside of the mainstream industry, but this artist is finding success working at Dark Horse, publishing a book from there, and saying some real things that are really worth saying. So I can't recommend this book enough. I really, really like it. I think you can see by the end the artist's style has evolved even further past the Mignola stuff, going further down their own lane, their own tweaks on it. So really recommend the book. The only downside I would say is that it's kind of on, it's nice paper, it's glossy paper, and the artwork looks good on it, but it's a little flimsy. And then my book is already, the binding is kind of, the glue is coming apart on the binding, so I have to be a little bit careful about it on rereads. But it's just, you can see it's like the glue's busting up, and the whole thing just feels kind of thin and flimsy. Like it doesn't feel like this is something I feel like almost deserves the, you know, the hardcover treatment right out the gate. And even though the glossy paper looks nice, like a matte paper that really allows for saturated inks and colors. And I say that because this has that feeling of something that's not just quite entertainment only. It feels like someone really trying to say something. And so I kind of wish I had it on my shelf in that more durable format of like book as art rather than just kind of book as entertainment. So hopefully, you know, I think this is probably the first thing that Benjamin Schipper has out, at least the first thing that I've seen. Hopefully this is pretty successful and pretty popular, and there will be more volumes to come. I'm sure the world seems like it could be explored much more, and hopefully that will eventually lead to some more careful collections of the artwork, because I feel like this is an artist and a writer who really deserves it. So yeah, definitely check out Joe Death and the Graven Image by Benjamin Schipper from Dark Horse. It's a really compelling piece. If you enjoy what we're doing here on the channel, you enjoy the books that we're exposing you to and want to support us, the best thing that you can do is to support our Patreon. We have 2 different tiers there of engagement. One is just early access to the videos. The second tier, you'll get exclusive access to some early previews of art that Sean and I are working on, the ability to participate in and vote on what happens next in our exclusive online comic, Prane Day, in which we kind of track the updates in the AI image making by using a Groundhog Day story. That's all the second tier. Any of the money that we get from Patreon goes back into buying the books that we review. So we just try and put that back into the community, other publishers, other artists' pockets. So if you want to support Living the Line itself, the best thing that you can do is support what Sean's doing with Living the Line Publishing. So we'll go ahead and take a look at one of his projects now. Centralia is an awesome, gorgeous comic by rising Dutch star Miel van de Peet. This is his first work. It's a really great sci-fi story. There's a world in the future where the sun has gotten so hot that people can't be on the ground, so they have to run around. There's a lot of conceits that go with that. You know, what is the world that looks like? And I think you can see by the art that Sean's description of this book as like a Moebius for young adults, a YA Moebius, is a really great description of this really gorgeous and like wild, wacky, fun book. Thanks for following along. Take it away, Jack.
You want to see all these books? Smash that subscribe button and the like button and the bell, and then you get them.